What's going on, guys? It's your boy Dylan back with another video. Today we're going to be doing our training vlog, but instead of our usual squat, bench, deadlifts, log press, all that fun stuff, today we're doing actually the beginning of our pivot week. We'll get to what that kind of is a little bit later today. All I know is today I'm going to deadlift a little bit of something, I'm going to bench press something or other, and I'm going to take something where I'm going to pick it up and run with it. We'll kind of figure that out as we go, but all I know is going to be fun and we'll get right to it. Oh yeah, don't forget to do all those YouTube things. Leave a big old like on this video, subscribe down below, share with your friends, do all that YouTube stuff for me, please. All right, so why a pivot week? But I think first, before we get to why I chose to do a pivot week, we have to understand what it is. So typically, especially going into say like the end of a powerlifting prep, as you're going into the meet, you'll either do a deload or a de-stress week beforehand or maybe even afterwards, where you either bring down the total volume or you bring down the stress and keep the volume where it's at. Both fine ways. I typically have always liked to de-stress a little bit more than a deload. I don't like to feel unprepared and feel like I haven't hit enough to get my muscles kind of moving. And that brings us to a pivot week. A pivot week is when we come in and we just kind of change up what we do, okay? So we're gonna come in, do the same basic movements, push, pull, squat, deadlift, but different implements, different rep ranges than we probably hit recently. And it honestly kind of helps out with some of that drag of doing squat, bench, deadlift every single time. So when do we kind of implement pivot weeks? Right now we kind of understand what they are. Pivot weeks, especially this year, 2020, given how often gyms have been closed, how competitions are kind of out the window in many states. I know in mine, we might have another one by the end of the year here in Washington, maybe, fingers crossed. And so people, myself included, have been doing these long hypertrophy blocks, strength blocks, and haven't been peaking for competition, but we've been hitting squat, bench, deadlift, or for me, log press, deadlift a lot, and overhead press. And so a good time to pivot week is actually when you're transitioning in programs. So let's say, for example, I'll use me, 16 weeks of a straight up block of hypertrophy and strength. And now I'm going to transition either back into some more hypertrophy or I'm going to transition into a peak block if I want to test, okay? So, both of those can be 8, 12 weeks plus, depending on what you got going on. So I'm going to take this week to give myself something new, change up my stimulus. I'm going to do stuff like the hex bar deadlift that's been going on behind me as I'm talking, to give myself something new to do, to bring the excitement back in training. This is what it's all about, right? If you do 2 years in a row of nothing but the same stuff over and over, you're gonna burn out. Let's keep exercise fun, let's keep it entertaining, and let's keep that common denominator of getting stronger. That's what it's all about. So the pivot weeks helps us stay interested, stay motivated, and change up the stimulus every once in a while, right? Let's move on to the next exercise. Now that brings us to the choice of variation, right? Number one, make sure that it's something that you probably haven't done in a while. So if we're gonna come in and using my own training vlogs over the last few weeks that you guys have been following, if I wanna do a new variation, I'm not gonna do something very close to what I previously did. So if I'm doing deadlifts, I don't want my variation to be pause deadlifts. I want them to be something like a hex bar deadlift or a Ukrainian deadlift or something out there different that you haven't played with, right? Or if you haven't used chains before, this is a perfect time to play with chains or bands, stuff like that, okay? Now just making sure that they still work within the same vein, doing a deadlift and then going to, just purely box jumps or something that's maybe not picking up a weight or working with that resistance might not quantify as at least a similar enough stimulus for the lift. So that pretty much does it for how, when, and why to implement a pivot week. If you guys have questions, I'll leave my email either in the video down below, or as I always do, down in the description if you guys have questions. You guys can also leave a question down in the comments, and I'll get back to you whenever I possibly can with answers on that. Actually, that'd be absolutely awesome. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you learned a whole bunch, go ahead and give it a big old thumbs up. Subscribe down below. Share with your friends or anyone who's in the field of strength that wants to understand how to use and implement pivot weeks. Right on. Peace.